Thank you, Miranda. So that is all the excerpts that we have time for this evening, but of course there are other shortlisted stories. Steve has written some little summaries, and we also have the biographies of the authors, whose stories we don't have time to read. And I'm going to add on to the end of those my own sort of comments on the stories so that everybody gets to know what I thought and why they made the shortlist. It was incredibly competitive. There was a hair between so many different stories, but they have all fought like tigers for their place in the shortlist, and that's why I really like the fact that it's been divided equally, the money for the competition. So, well done to everyone, you are all winners. I will say that in advance before announcing the winner. Twisted by Tracy Fells. So, Tracy Fells lives close to the South Downs in glorious West Sussex. She has won awards for both fiction and drama. Her short stories have appeared in Firewords Quarterly, The Yellow Room and Writers' Forum, online at Litro New York, Short Story Sunday, and in anthologies such as Fugue, Rattletails, and A Box of Stars Beneath the Bed. Competition success includes shortlistings for the Commonwealth Writers' Short Story Prize, the Brighton Prize, the Fish Short Story Prize, and the Fish Flash Fiction Prizes. Tracy completed her MA in Creative Writing at Chichester University in 2016 and is currently seeking representation for a crime mystery novel and her short story collection. Tracy's story Twisted interleaves recollections of a disturbing childhood event which unfolds through the story and sessions with a counsellor in the present day, and here is why I liked it. Twisted is a clever story in the best possible way. What seems initially to be a child's eye view is rapidly superseded by the cynical voice of our adolescent narrator. Sharp-eyed, sharp-tongued Alice has many secrets to hide, and this makes the story an intriguing mystery as well as a compelling personal history of many layers. Last Call at the Rialto by Daniel Waugh is another story that was in the shortlist. Daniel Waugh was born in London and has lived in France and Yorkshire. He lives in Wimbledon with his wife, 3-year-old daughter and black cat. Last Call at the Rialto is his first short story, so well done, Daniel. It's all downhill from here. Last Call at the Rialto is an elegiac story of the 3 J's, friends who attend a weekly bingo session in a seaside town till the bingo hall is closed down. At the same time, the society of the women is disrupted, and ultimately life itself is all too transient. Not much is written about old age, presumably because publishers believe nobody wants to read about it, but Daniel Waugh's trio of feisty OAPs, Joyce, Joan and Juliet, are not only highly entertaining, there's a real sly humour and the dialogue is absolutely pitch perfect. They're extremely credible characters, fully rounded, speaking their minds and taking no prisoners when their beloved bingo hall is threatened. I also admired the author's restraint, not falling into the easy trap of a happy ending, but leaving the reader with questions as well as resolution. Looking for Natalie by Susan Hay. Susan Hay returned to North East Fife in 2013. Having spent 8 years living in a cave house in the Loire Valley. She writes stories and a novel in a caravan under a vine by a river, not as glamorous as it sounds, apparently. Her work has won awards and appeared in Dyslexia, Cadenza magazine, Sun Penny Anthology, New Writing Dundee 8, Beginning Anthology, and various American journals and anthologies. In 2016, she was shortlisted for a Scottish Book Trust New Writers Award and was a finalist in the Scottish Arts Club short story competition. She reviews and interviews for several journals, including Dundee University Review of the Arts. She teaches German at Dundee University. And Steve describes Looking for Natalie as following our protagonist into the atmosphere and tumult of Paris during the student rebellion of 1968. We are there in the pension with the odd characters, meet with the plotters, and are in the thick of the action and violence, leading to a climactic event of lifelong significance. Looking for Natalie, what I enjoyed about it was that it whisks us to the sights, sounds, loves and dangers of 60s Paris, where our shy saxophone-playing narrator finds a wild, risky freedom as the lover of a revolutionary. What I particularly enjoyed about it was the vividness of this lost world conjured up before our eyes, and the deftly handled exploration of the gulf between then and now. What's lost, including some aspects of our narrator's identity, and what remains. And speaking of what remains, nice segue, we have All That Remains by Rob Hawke. Yay. Who has his fan base in tonight. Rob Hawke, and is also in fact a Liars League author. Yeah, excellent. He lives and works in Camberwell in London. His short fiction has featured in Mamaya Short Story Review and Shooter Literary Magazine, and he holds an MA in Creative and Critical Writing from the University of Sussex. He is currently working on his first full-length novel, a political drama set in southwest England. To support his writing, Rob works part-time at a psychology institute. In Rob Hawke's story, All That Remains, we set out on an expedition to a place where there is believed to be a mass grave. It is an account by a survivor of encountering death squads, a family member who's taken away and disappeared, and friends who are forced to leave the countryside and organise resistance from the city. This is another story set in a strange and fascinating place. Rob Hawke's story explores loss and survival as exemplified by the friendship over years of two widows of disappeared husbands. The voice of the narrator, Marcy, is direct, utterly convincing, and neither wavers nor shies away from dark and difficult territory without giving in to sensationalism. So we have some fine stories competing with one another to win the coveted mug and the Liars League champagne to fill it. I will just give you some of my comments on the stories that were read just now from my introduction, where I talk a little bit about the thousands, literally thousands of short stories that I have read over the last few years. I teach short story writing, several classes, I teach a writer's workshop. I read at least sort of 30, 40 stories every month for Liars League. And I read short stories, believe it or not, for pleasure as well. I'm quite hard to impress, but I was impressed, and I had great pleasure in reading a lot of these stories. Some of them jumped out at me, and some of them snuck up on me, and I don't know which I like more, but I certainly felt that they all earned their place. Several of the stories in the book I fell in love with at first sight. The title alone hooked me, in some cases. David Lewis, naming no names, making me eager to turn the first page, but some revealed their true quality only on a second or third reading. Some, like the Mays County Christmas Gun Festival by David Lewis, are here because they made me laugh, and because there aren't, and probably never will be, enough funny stories out there which are just as entertaining as they are clever, both whip-smart and witty. Others, like the first story that was read this evening, Anna Lewis's thoughtful and bittersweet The Volcano, drew me effortlessly into their world. The characters were subtly drawn and instantly credible, and the depth and heft of the story was worthy of a novel. Then there were the shorter pieces like Gina Challen's Haunting Undercurrents, which mesmerised and amazed me in equal measure. How did the author cram such a richly textured narrative into such a small space? How did she manage to say so much with so few words? And I think The Cliffs of Bandiagara is one I haven't yet given judges' comments on. This to me felt like a full-length novel concentrated into a slowly unfolding kaleidoscope of scenes, characters, people and languages. The unknowability of human beings to one another, and yet their unseen interconnectedness, is beautifully evoked, as are the sights, smells and culture of Africa. And I think the last story that I need to comment on is Olga Zilberbourg's piece. I'm hoping I haven't forgotten anyone, have I? Supersum. Oh, did I? Oh, okay, sorry. My apologies. What did I think of that? Supersum is that supremely difficult thing to write. A tender adolescent love story with a dark backdrop, which dares to drop cliché and live fully inside its protagonist's head and heart. The rhythm of our narrator's journey across town to what he hopes will be safety gives it an urgent, inexorable pace, yet the author makes time for needle-sharp, vivid descriptions of this crumbling town. So I will now move on to A Love and Hair by Olga Zilberbourg. I was trying to write some comments on it, but I thought it's probably best if I just speak extempore, because the story, its narrator is fresh, and the voice is conversational and sarcastic and cynical and knowing, and at the same time admits the possibility of romance. It's on the back of the New Short Stories book, you will find unspeakable secrets, disappeared husbands, bisexual love triangles, revolutionary conspiracies, and so forth. Bisexual love triangle is the three-word summary of this story, but it's much, much more than that. It's not just reaching for kind of cheap thrills. It's a lovely comment on the hope that springs eternal in the human heart of the possibility of finding that one person and then dashing that possibility to the ground until the next time. I love the way this story surprised me, entertained me. I love the way it took what I was expecting to find and made me look at the character and the relationships between all of the characters afresh. And I thought Miranda did a great job of reading it. I guess I have to tell you who won now, don't I? Yes. At some point. Okay, there were some wonderful stories. I had a particular yen for some of them. As I say, some jumped out at me and some kind of crept up on me. When I read them all through in alphabetical order, I seem to remember, there was one that grabbed me and wouldn't let go. And that story was Love and Hair by Olga Zilberbourg. Is this the mug? The mug is coming. Small drum roll, please. Okay. Steve's going to do a sort of mug striptease, I think. This year, we are sponsored to the tune of one bottle of champagne by Lies League, i.e. myself, so that... Where is Olga? Hello, Olga. Hi. Very nice to meet you. So that you, Olga, can raise a toast to yourself. It's the one that says champagne. Yeah. In the finest that France has to offer.
So, this is my bit. This is all I get to do.
Yeah.
So if Olga would like to come up and... They were all fantastic, and Olga's is a worthy winner out of 10 terrific stories. So, this is the mug. This is a one-off. There's none other like it. They've been working all year to make that. And that's champagne. So, thanks very much. Do you want to say
I'm certainly no good at speaking extemporaneously.
That's the one.
But thank you very much. This is very special. It's particularly special because I'm writing in my second language, and it's I've been working at it for a long time, and this is really the first thing I've ever won. So so yeah, this is and this story. I've been working on it for more than 5 years.
Wow.
It started after I have a good friend who was in the Vagina monologues, and one other thing about it, it's also a cross-cultural story. I'm definitely my character Elena is what didn't happen in the excerpt is that her the person who shows up, the person who was texting, is her old friend from Russia, and this is it's been really interesting for me to see how people who know each other for a long time in one setting then transition to a different setting, and there's so much difference, and then there's a lot of commonality too, and how to negotiate that relationship is always the tensions are always rife. So anyway, I feel very, very much outside of my comfort zone, but shall we open the bottle of champagne?
Just to excuse myself, I'm terrible at making decisions, and having my heart having spoken for Olga's story, I thought there are some other stories which I really wanted to recognise, and so I dug into my wine cupboard, and I thought, you are all such worthy winners, 75 quid, fantastic, go and spend it on something nice. But I felt like David Lewis's story, the Naze County Christmas Gum Festival, deserved at least a bottle of Prosecco. Her story, Undercurrents, was another one that I was absolutely wrestling with. She, alas, will not get wine. It doesn't go well by post, but I will be sending her a little gift of Liars League anthologies to recognise her wonderful story. And that is it. I'm done. Thank you so much, Steve. Thank you, everybody, and thank you all the authors for being here and for writing such memorable and impressive pieces of work. Thank you. And thank you to all our actors.